Yeah. So session number 17, and we will discuss verse number 16. So let's just revise. Background, I keep repeating, it is for Mimansis who had a strong belief in action and that action being the supreme. So the Upadesh is for Mimansis, and in a sense, we are all Mimansis because we also have a strong belief in actions, and the whole life we are performing one action or after the other. So Lord Shiva wanted to give Upadesh to Mimansis, saying action is not actually supreme, and it is the knowledge which is supreme, because knowledge is the only one which can liberate us from the sorrows of this world, as well as sorrows from the as well as liberate us from the cycle of birth and death. So in the first shloka, Bhagavan tells us how action is not supreme because action is inert, and there are, other than action, there are a lot of other factors which are involved in producing the result, and all these other factors are not in our control. So result is actually ordained by Bhagavan. Then in shloka number 2, Bhagavan goes on to tell us that the way we are doing actions, it actually is taking us away from our goal and deeper into the bondage. And these are all unintelligent actions, actions performed with selfish motive, which agitates the mind and strengthens the vasana stains. Sorry. Then in shloka number 3, Bhagavan tells us the right way to perform actions, and that is selfless actions, the actions which are dedicated, devoted to Bhagavan, and like basically remember Bhagavan all the time while performing action, which keeps the mind calm and peaceful and also purifies the mind. So it actually takes us closer to our goal of liberation. Then shloka number 4 to 10, Bhagavan told us about the path of bhakti, bhakti yoga, and Bhagavan gives us like three sadhanas. One is puja, where we discuss the ritualistic process of performing puja, and at the same time, Bhagavan tells us that serving the world is actually the puja. Then going further, Bhagavan tells us about japa, and there are three types of japa: the loud japa, the medium japa, and soft japa. Loud is the one where everyone can hear the japa. Medium is the one where only you yourself can hear the japa, and soft japa is the one which is done in the mind. And the third sadhana Bhagavan talked about was contemplation. And in contemplation, Bhagavan told us about Virala Chintana and Sarala Chintana, the interrupted contemplation where mind keeps wandering, and Sarala Chintana where it is uninterrupted, where one is able to focus on the object of contemplation for a long period of time. And then Bhagavan also told us two types of contemplation, which is Bheda Chintana, where my attitude is I am different from Bhagavan, and like I am different from Bhagavan. And the second type is Abheda Chintana, where I realize that my higher nature and Bhagwan's higher nature is same, and that is what is Abheda Chintana. Then this Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are like long-term solutions required for quietening the mind as well as removing the vasana stains from the mind. So Bhagwan also prescribes Ashtanga Yoga, which is nothing but temporary means of controlling the mind. And this is controlled through restraint of the pranas or breathing. Just a moment. Why it has come? Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Can you see the screen? I hope you are able to see. Yeah. If you are not, just let me know. Yeah. So that is Ashtanga Yoga, where one is able to control the mind, but only for a short period by the restraint of pranas. And for this, we use the relationship between the breath and the mind. And we saw how this relationship, because there are two branches of the same source, and by controlling one, other can also be controlled. And in the shloka number 13, Bhagavan tells us that the two states of the mind, where the one which is used in Ashtanga Yoga, that is the restraint of the mind, we are able to suspend the mind only for a short period of time. But the real thing, which is the destruction of the mind or vinasha, can be done only by contemplation on our higher nature, which is Brahman, which is where in the sloka it is referred to contemplation on the one common denominator. And we saw what is this common denominator. Like in this world, everything has two natures. One is name and form, and beneath that, or like one can say, pervading every name and form, is the Brahman, and that is the common denominator. But all the time while transacting in this world, we focus only on the lower nature, which is name and form. But one needs to contemplate on this higher nature, the common denominator, and that results into the complete destruction of the mind. And that is what is the our goal, to establish in this higher, to abide in this higher nature, our higher nature. And in today's shloka, we are actually going to see the steps as to how one can contemplate on this common denominator. And we also discuss, like, people get scared when they hear that the mind is going to be destroyed. And your mind is going to be destroyed. Okay, I'm not doing this, is it? Okay, just sorry. Yeah. Uh, when the mind, we actually have two minds. One is the objective mind or the perceiving mind, which is which is exposed to this world of objects. And this mind has the power to know, and our ability to know the different things in this world comes from this perceiving or objective mind. It The sense organs, when they focus on the objects of the world, they send signals to the mind, that is the cognition. And the mind, which has a store of memory, it it is able to identify or recognize the objects that are perceived by this objective mind, the cognition and recognition. And this mind tells us the about the world as it is, without any coloring or without any prejudice. But then there is another mind, which is projecting mind, and it has a power to desire. So when it is first of all, like, there we have an ignorance about our own true nature. We feel that because of identification with body, mind, and intellect, there is a feeling of being incomplete, unfulfilled. So because of this ignorance, all the time we are able to we are able all the time we are seeking happiness or trying to become fulfilled, and that's why we are chasing these world objects, because we superimpose this happiness on the world objects, and we have our own perception about happiness or pain when it comes to the object of the world. And all the time we are trying to seek happiness and avoid the pain, and because of that we develop likes and dislikes. So we look at every object from this perception of likes and dislikes, which is actually like coloring our vision, and it creates vasanas and desires, because we want to acquire the objects on which we superimpose happiness, whereas we want to stay away from the object which we perceive as pain. And in order to do that, we keep performing actions which create pattern, or we can say the habits. So we actually become like a robot, and all these objects of the world, per se, there is no happiness or no pain in any of the objects. But because of our likes and dislikes, we superimpose this happiness or pain on the objects and keep performing actions. And by performing these actions for happiness or to avoid pain, we strengthen these vasanas or desires. And at the same time, we also create the karma phala, and we have to take birth in this world in order to experience these karma phalas, as well as to exhaust these vasanas, and we get caught in this cycle of birth and death. So the real culprit which strengthens this bondage is the projecting mind, and the perceiving or the objective mind is the one which actually gives us the knowledge as it is about the world and the objects. So when we contemplate on this common denominator, and we will see like how one can do that, this projecting mind gets killed. And what essentially means is we are able to remove this ignorance about my own true nature. I know who am I know I am happiness. So there is we don't really like superimpose this superimposition or happiness or pain on objects ends. We don't have any likes and dislikes. There are no desires, because I am fulfilled, I am contained. So there are no desires, there is no need for any action, and we get freed from the bondage of this world. So initially we may have a fear as to how does one transact in this world when the mind gets killed. But one needs to remember that it is only the one part of the mind which gets us deeper into the bondage gets killed. And so actually we are able to transact in this world more efficiently or more effectively. So that's what we discussed in shloka number 14. And in shloka number 15, like the obvious question is like how does this exalted yogi, the one who has realized his own self, how does it transact? So the shloka number 15 tells us that what duty is there for the exalted yogi whose mind has been annihilated? And the answer is he doesn't have any duties, since he has gained abidance in the self. He has realized his own true nature, which is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. And we also discussed this shloka in Bhagavad Gita, which again tells us the same thing. It says that the man who rejoices only in the self, who's satisfied with the self, who's content in the self alone, verily there is nothing to do. So such a yogi has no responsibilities, and he doesn't even have to act, because if you contemplate, you will realize we are performing actions all the time with the sole motive of happiness. And this is to gain happiness for myself. So the entire perspective or entire vision of such a yogi changes. Let us first see why we perform actions. We are all the time identified with our lower nature, which is body, mind, and intellect, which is finite and limited. So there is a sense of being unfulfilled, and because of that, like, we perform actions because we are attempting to make us fulfilled and complete through actions. So every action we perform, the only motive is to gain happiness for ourselves, and this creates doership, that is karta and bhokta. And any action, like, the any action will have a result, and the one who's the doer of the action, the karta of the action, also becomes bhokta, that is, the experiencer of the karma phala or the result of the action. And this is the way we get deeper and deeper into the bondage. But the yogi, like, after he realizes his own true nature, is totally disidentified with this limited body, mind, and intellect. He has a strong identification. In fact, I would say he's all the time abiding in his higher nature, which is Sat Chit Ananda, infinite, eternal, and bliss. And he, this yogi is totally fulfilled, totally complete. So he actually doesn't have to undertake any action, but he performs action out of happiness, out of compassion for the other beings. So his actions are for the loka kalyan, that is welfare of all. He has no selfish motive behind every action. He knows that he himself is happiness. So he doesn't have to depend on happiness from this world. So the actions are performed as a service without any expectation of happiness. And all the time when he's performing action, he has a very clear understanding that it is not me who's doing this action. The actions are performed by the body, mind, and intellect under the influence of gunas. And he has a very clear understanding. He is neither the doer, and that's why he is also not the bhokta, the experiencer of the actions. And this, because of this, there are no desires, there are no karma phalas. So such a yogi gets liberated from the bondage of this world. And we also saw, okay, this is just to summarize. When we are identified with body, mind, intellect, uh, we have this feeling of being unfulfilled. So there are desires. So we become doer of the action. So we become experience of the action. And the karma phalas get us deeper into the bondage. So all the actions that we perform are unintelligent actions for selfish motive, and it leads to sorrow. Whereas when we are disidentified with body, mind, intellect, and identified with our higher nature, we actually don't have to carry out any actions. We carry out actions out of fulfillment, and we get liberated. These are all intelligent actions, and these intelligent actions even gets us success in this materialistic world. And as far as spiritual thing is concerned, we get liberated from this world. So a yogi who has realized his own self, he has no duties, he doesn't have to perform the action. So what does it do? So there are three types of such jnanis, and a common thing among them is they are contented with the self because they have realized that happiness is their nature. There are no desires, there is no dependency on the world. They are able to manage the mind, and they become the master of the mind and intellect. So the first type of such jnani, which is given in Bhagavad Gita chapter shloka number 20 of chapter 4, such a jnani is fully engaged in this world and performing all the actions for the welfare of the all, but externally he may appear to be very busy, but his understanding is very clear that he is not performing any action. And the example of this can be Gurudev himself or Swami Vivekananda, who worked in this world for welfare of the all, for giving knowledge to the world, and they were fully engaged in the world. So this is the first type of jnani in shloka number 21 of chapter 4. uh, it describes the second type of jnani, who's actually like, once he has realized that he himself is happiness, this world is nothing but an illusion, loses all the interest in this world. So he goes to a secluded place, maybe like Himalayas, and does his contemplation there. And the example of this type of bhakta is like Sri Ramana Maharshi himself, who was least interested in this world. And the third type of jnani is described in chapter in 422, and this is the one who continues to remain in this sansara, in this world as a grihasti. He may have his family, and the greatest example of this is Bhagavan Krishna himself. He had a family, he had kingdom, but he was not dependent on this world for his happiness. He was master of his mind. So once a jnani realizes his own self, he can transact in this world with, with this any of these three types of attitudes. And that's what we discussed in the last shloka, which was shloka number 15. So today we are going to discuss this verse number 16. दृश्यवारितं चित्तमात्मनः चित्तदर्शनं तत्वदर्शनम्. So some of the Sanskrit words in this shloka, chittam, which here indicate the mind, drushyavaritam, withdrawn from the scene, that is the objects of the world, atmana, of its own, that is the self. And it says like such a yogi gets the vision of consciousness, which is chitta darshanam, and that is what is the vision of the reality, tattva darshanam. And this is the meaning of the shloka. The mind, withdrawn from the objects, sees itself as the consciousness, and that is the vision of reality, and that is what is the self realization. So it gives a step as to how to move towards this liberation. So it says the mind needs to be withdrawn from the objects, and once you do that, the mind is very clearly able to see itself as the consciousness, and that is what is the vision of the self, our higher nature, and that is also the vision of the reality. Okay, so we will read the commentary. Yeah, Chanda, you want to read?
Yeah, I'll read. As explained earlier in verse 14, the objects of the world, including the body, mind, and intellect, are manifold and known, but the knower, the witnessing self, is the one consciousness. Should I continue?
Yeah. Please complete all this. Yeah.
We should contemplate thus. Many thoughts arise in the mind. This is a book, this is a watch, and so on. This can be expressed differently as I see this book, or I know the watch and the time it shows. The objects of such thoughts keep on changing, but the seer or knower does not change. Generally, our mind is extrovert. When we see an object and a thought arises in our mind, we start brooding over the object, and our mind plays about with thoughts associated with the object. We never think of turning our attention to the seer of the object or on ourselves. In contemplation, our attempt is to shift the attention of our mind from the object and turn it towards the consciousness which illumines the object by the thought. I am the witness consciousness. When a continuous flow of the same thought is maintained, we experience that the mind withdraws from the object seen and merges in the consciousness. Consciousness being the reality, the experience is called the vision of reality. The meaning of the words experience and vision is not to be understood literally. In this experience or vision, the duality of the experiencer experienced or seer seen is not there. The abidance of the mind in its own nature of consciousness is a vision of reality.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So this is again like talking about our true nature, two natures, like not only us, everything, every object in this world has two natures. And when we discuss this common denominator, we saw that when we see an object, we are only focused on the name and form, and the underneath it, or we may say pervading this name and form is only one reality, which is the consciousness. But all the time we are focused on the lower nature, and that's why we see plurality in this world, like the objects are different from each other. But if we are focused on the common denominator, which is Brahman, we will only see Brahman everywhere. And that will give us a vision of equanimity with everything. So the shloka tells us that when you are focused on that on the object, you will only see lower reality. But what you need to do is focus on the higher nature. And it says how you do that. Okay, let me just explain this with this chart. Okay, we are identified with this body, mind, and intellect. For illustration, I have used only mind. And then there are these objects of the world, which are many, and the mind is all the time focused externally, that is on this world, because as I said, it is trying to seek happiness from the world. So when it is focused on one object, like we saw that it has its own interpretation of likes and dislikes related to the object. So it is focused on one object, and it happens only for a short period. Immediately the focus changes to second object, it changes to third object, then fourth and fifth, and so on. So what this shloka tells us is you have to change this focus. We are all the time focused externally. So the shloka tells us that one needs to turn this focus inside, internal, like inside, into the mind. And once that happens, it says that the mind disappears, and we realize there is no mind which can interpret or like color these world objects. And when the mind disappears, as we have already discussed, the one part of the mind is destroyed, which colors everything, and we are clearly able to see our higher nature as well as the higher nature of the objects. So, this is the step that is given by Bhagwan in order to move towards this establishing in the self, which is the ultimate goal. So one needs to understand how do you do this, because we are so used to looking at the external objects, and our focus all the time is on the external objects. And one of the methods, I think we had all discussed this earlier too. So we will again discuss this, but with a different perspective as to changing the focus from mind being focused externally to changing that focus to focus internally. Okay. So we will use this technique given in Drishya Vivek. Okay. So this is the common state like which we are living right now, where we are all the time focused on the objects. So what one needs to do, like this focusing internally, it has to have some steps. So this will tell us what steps one needs to follow. So when you sit for meditation, like you close the eyes, so focus is taken away from the objects. Though like we can close our eyes, but still like nose, ears are, we cannot close them. So still some amount of focus is there on the in the objects, because we are able to hear different sounds and we are able to smell things. So this focus on object needs to change. So when we say it needs to change, and the mind needs something to focus on. So if we have to change this focus, we have to give mind something else to focus on. So what do? We change the focus and we focus on the body or the sense organs. Like I am able to uh, I am able to understand what is the condition of my eyes, what is the condition of my nose. So instead of focusing on the world objects, we focus on the sensory objects. We try to feel the sensations in the body, and that is nothing but changing the focus from objects to our sense organs. So in the third stage, like we change this focus to the mind, the subtlest part of our body. And what do you mean by changing the focus to mind? Mind is nothing but a flow of thoughts. So when you are quiet and sit in a secluded corner, or when you stop all these sense organs, we are able to observe the thoughts in the mind. And when I say observe the thoughts in the mind, it is done dispassionately, and we don't have to judge anything, just observe the thoughts. But we are so used to like getting identified with the mind, that mind will make sure that we get entangled in one of the thoughts, and then the one thought will lead to another. So one needs to be very alert and just focus on the mind, on the thoughts that are coming up in the mind. And when we do that, we stand apart from the mind. And when you do that, like you are actually like witness to everything that is happening. And this means you are actually abiding in your higher nature, which is self or the atman. And as we like started from externally and moved internally, this is the stage, like we cannot move any further inwards, because we are already abiding in the self. So when you focus on the thoughts in the mind actually becomes quiet. And if you, and as I said, like mind is so much used to habituated to wandering in this world. So this state of like focusing on the thoughts doesn't last long. It lasts only for a few seconds, and immediately after that mind will drag us into this world. So the period, like, or the moments when we are able to observe the mind, we realize that the mind has totally quietened. But this doesn't last long, so we have to purify the mind and also practice this contemplation. We need to have a regular and disciplined practice of this. Then we will be able to extend this duration where we are able to focus only on the thoughts of the mind, and we realize the mind has quietened, and we can feel, we can actually experience the happiness of our higher nature. And as mentioned in this commentary, these words like experience or vision, they are actually for the gross objects, the self, which is the most subtle. These words actually don't have meaning, because there is no duality now. It is only the self. And from knowing, I have moved to being. That is like I realize that I am this Brahman, and there is no other entity because this Brahman pervades the entire world. So there is no duality, that is me experiencing something else. I have become Brahman, so there is nothing to experience. So these words, experience and vision, actually are used only for understanding. So when I reach that state where I am pure witness, I am able to observe the thoughts of the mind. I become Brahman, and there is no more this concept of observer and observed. There is no duality at all. So this is the step, and actually, like, this is one of the methods of changing the focus of the mind internally. And Bhagavan actually uses the method of inquiry, which is like described in this next section. And we would like somebody to read this, okay? Chanda or any other, anyone else. Anybody else wants to read?
Can I read?
Yeah, okay. Please go ahead, Lalita.
Okay, who is reading? Select. Somebody else is reading.
No, Lalita ji, you can go ahead and read.
That is Jnana Yoga, right?
Yes, yes. You can read the entire thing actually. Four
All
paragraphs.
spiritual paths lead to the same unique goal, abidance in the self. The earlier 16 verses described the path of action, path of devotion, and the Ashtanga Yoga. Henceforth is expounded the path of inquiry, Jnana Yoga. This path has a special fascination and attraction for an intellect dominated individual. The path of inquiry is unique. We shall now see what distinguishes it from the other paths. When we are faced with a problem, we seek to solve it. We consider the problem as real and start thinking about its solution. In other words, we take the existence of the problem for granted. That being the case, we do not spend time thinking whether the problem is real or not, but on its solution. A problem once solved, either due to our solution or some other reason, may arise again. It could be the same problem arising in a different form or a different problem altogether. We again try to solve it and free ourselves from the troublesome problem. We shall illustrate this through an example. Should I continue?
Yeah, yeah, please just finish this, yeah, entire
The
thing.
majority of mankind is in search of peace. We are faced with the problem of mental agitation and disturbance. Here we have taken for granted that there is such a thing as mind which is agitated. We then try to reduce the mental agitation and attain peace by various methods like pranayama or japa as described earlier. By these practices, the mind becomes relatively and temporarily peaceful. But when we go back to the din and crowd of the marketplace, this hard found peace is shattered. When problems arise in another form, we again become agitated. In some cases, we find that the very practices are seen to cause a greater disturbance. Therefore, it becomes necessary first to understand what our problem is. On understanding the nature of the problem, we shall try and find a more permanent solution and not seek hasty temporary solutions. The path of enquiry teaches us how to inquire into the problem with a quiet, unperturbed mind. If such inquiry is conducted, not only in the quest of the truth, but also in our day to day living, we shall discover that the majority of our problems are merely mind created, purely imaginary. They have no real existence other than in our own mind. When a problem itself is proved to be imaginary, where is the need to find a solution to it? To strike at the very root of the problem by inquiry into the nature of the problem and not its solution is the uniqueness of the path of knowledge.
Very good, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so this is like this inquiry method is very unique to Ramana Maharshi, and only somebody who believes, like, who has a strong conviction that this world is an illusion, it is only a creation of mind can come up with such an approach. Because he strongly believed that world is an illusion, it is nothing but the creation of mind, and which itself is a fictitious entity. And the examples given are like what it says is, like whenever we are faced with the problem, we assume that the problem really exists and try to find a solution. And okay, let me explain this again with a chart. And this is the famous example of rope and a snake. So there is a rope lying on a road, and it is pitch dark. So somebody who sees it from the distance, he feels that it is a snake. And similarly, like the world also, we strongly believe that this world exists, and based on our perception of this world, we deal with different situations in this world. So here also, like actually the reality is that there is only a rope, very harmless rope, lying on the road, but it is pitch dark, and because of that, I feel their mind projects it to be a snake, and it is ferocious and poisonous. That's what the mind interprets. And how one sees this snake instead of a rope depends upon the temperament. So those who have a tamasic temperament, like we had discussed this briefly in earlier sessions also, like everything in this world is pervaded by these gunas also, and one of them is the tamasic guna, which is represented by lethargy and ignorance. So a person who has a tamasic tendencies, like when he sees this rope as a snake, what thoughts come to his mind is, this is a very ferocious and poisonous snake. I cannot fight this snake. And there is fear in the mind, and such an individual who has tamasic tendency always has a tendency to run away from the problem. And that's why we see these addictive people who want to run away from this world by consuming these intoxicating things. So a person with tamasic tendency is gripped with fear, and his action is to run away from this problem. The second is, there can be a Rajasic person who is action oriented. The Rajas Guna represents action, and such a person is action oriented, wants to do action all the time. So when he sees this snake instead of a rope, his, his reaction is to beat this snake, to kill this snake. So the attitude is to fight this snake. And we find people in the world who have Rajasic tendency. They are always competing with others. They want to stay ahead of the others. And that is what is the Rajasic attitude. So, based on the gunas predominant in you, you see the world differently. And what is Ramana Maharshi proposing? Like that is applicable for somebody with a sattvic tendency. Sattva is represented by knowledge, peace. So such a person, instead of like running away from this problem of the snake or fighting the world, he wants to inquire about this world, or inquire about the snake in this metaphor. He wants to know whether it's really a snake. So what he will do, he will put a torch and light it and try to see what this snake is. And when he does that, he realizes that there is no snake at all. There is only a harmless rope which is lying on the road. It is not going to create any problem for me. And so that's why, like, one needs to have develop this sattvic tendencies in order to do this inquiry, and that is what is done by karma yoga, bhakti yoga, which gives a permanent solution to quietening of the mind or killing of the mind. And Jnana Yoga is the one which gives us the inquiry method, and by inquiry we will realize that the world that we take it as a real is actually an illusion, and I am Brahman, I am everywhere, so there is nothing to be afraid of. So this is what this introduction to Jnana Yoga tells us, that sometime, most of the time, why sometimes? Most of the times, any problem that we face, we take it to be real and try to solve the problem. But if you really inquire into the problem, you may realize that the problem doesn't exist. And this applies to our day-to-day life also. And more specifically, Ramana Maharshi has given this approach of inquiry method, where we inquire into the nature of the mind. And once we do that, we realize that the mind itself disappears. So if there is no mind, then there is no projection of the world also. So we kill the problem with just one arrow, I can say, that inquiry. And in the next session, we will understand what this inquiry method is. Okay. So with this, we have come to the end of this session. Yeah. So this is something okay. Yeah, Chanda, please.
Now, Viraj, if you could go back to slide 14, point number 2. I missed out on that part.
Oh, okay.
I'm
14.
going to take you time. Slide 14.2.
Okay, this is
Mind.
about the contemplation part.
Yeah, yeah.
Contemplation part, right? Yeah, I think these steps we had discussed earlier also. Okay, let's go through again. Yeah. Okay. Let me begin from the first step itself. Yeah, the first step, I mean, we don't have to do
Yeah,
anything. We
yeah.
are always in this, like always focused on the objects. Okay. So this is when we sit for contemplation, we close our eyes. First, we should try to like feel the different parts of our body. So naturally, the focus shifts from external objects to our body. Okay. And yeah, so what do you want to know about the second or third stage you are saying?
No, second state.
Yeah, second stage, like when you sit for meditation and close your eyes, you can feel the sensation in your body. You can feel your legs. You can feel your hands. That is what it is. So when you do that, your focus shifts from external world onto your body. Because even though your eyes are closed, there may be noises around and you may get distracted. You may again focus on the world.
Okay.
You
Okay,
understood
thank
this,
you.
right? Like there are, we are hardly focused on our things that are going on within our body also. There is some pain, there is some stiffness in some part. So you just have to feel it.
And you feel it with your mind.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted clarity
Yeah.
on.
When you
Thanks.
close
Thanks,
your eyes,
Viraj.
you can still focus your mind on different parts of the body,
Hmm, hmm, hmm,
right? That's what we are
hmm,
doing. So that shifts focus from external objects onto the body.
hmm.
So we are going step by step, because very difficult to understand how one changes the focus from world into mind straight away. So this is just an intermittent step, you can say.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Because right now I'm reading Gurudev's contemplation book and I'm doing
Okay.
that exercise 1. So I was just
Yes.
connecting this to that
Yes.
exercise
Yes.
1.
That's what it
And
is.
he
Yeah.
tells you now do it for 3 days, then do the next exercise. Very
Yes.
good book.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also says that people think there is no big deal in like
Hmm,
just
hmm, hmm.
sitting quiet. But
Correct.
that sitting quiet without body like moving at all, it that itself will take few months,
Yeah.
because finally body and mind are also linked. So whenever the mind gets agitated, we have some itch here, itch there, and all that. Okay, so just
Hmm,
to sit like a statue will take few months.
hmm.
Which book you said,
Thank you.
Chandraji?
This is Contemplation by Gurudev.
Art of
Acha,
Contemplation.
acha. Art of
Art of
contemplation.
Contemplation. Yeah, this is the lectures that he had given. I don't know whether you can see the book.
No, it's okay.
And these are
name
the
of the book.
lectures that he had given, and there are 6 exercises given for contemplation.
Yes.
It's a brilliant book.
So this is one of the exercises. Yeah, it again gives step by step.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Viraj.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, anyone has any doubt?
Very nice session. Very nice examples also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
With a real world problem, if you can give an example, how to contemplate and say that the problem is not there. All the
Very difficult
Say,
example.
for example, you are hungry. Hunger
Yeah.
is a problem.
Yeah.
You have to physically satiate it with food, isn't
I
it?
mean, it doesn't apply to every problem. But see, I won't be able to give example. But what I can say is,
Yeah.
based on the behavior of some person, we make some judgments about that person. Like
Yes.
this person is of such and such nature, so I should stay away from this person or something. So that is the solution we arrive. But sometimes, like that is his perspective. Like he doesn't mean to harm you, but he has a different perspective, and that's why he is behaving that way. So the person is not actually a problem. He is behaving as per his understanding, and it necessarily doesn't harm me. I just feel that this behavior is going to harm me. So we feel the problem is that person is a problem and his behavior is going to cause me some harm. But that is
You
not,
assume, yeah, sorry. You
yeah,
assume a
that is
problem
not,
which is not there.
yeah. It is just our interpretation about that person and his behavior.
So, like somebody said last time, I think Chandaji said about a maid. The maid not coming home or not doing it. It's not a problem if you think it is a problem. Otherwise, just let
Right.
go.
That's a very
It's
good
not a
example.
problem.
Yeah.
And that's
Because,
a good example. And many
yeah.
times we think it's a big problem. And
We
even when
Thanks.
you're hungry,
immediately, we immediately judge that maid that she's indisciplined and like she, just for no reason, she's taking off or something. I mean, that is our interpretation.
It
But
removes that agitation from your mind.
yeah, right.
And then my husband keeps asking me, how are you so calm?
Yeah.
So I tell him that I look at it differently. You see, in your society meetings, we get very upset if somebody contradicts my viewpoint.
Right.
But
Right.
he has his viewpoint, I have my viewpoint.
Yes.
And people take it personally. Stop talking to that person also.
Yeah, right.
That is stop being judgmental. Is that what?
Yes.
Yes. Everybody is different and everybody will have different perspective about different things.
Just
Like,
accept
and
it.
we think that the person wants to harm me or like contradict me, but that is not the reality. He just has a different view and a different behavior based on that. Yeah. Lalita ji, good, you remembered that example.
Yeah.
Very
Thank you,
good
Lalita ji.
because
example.
my maid remains absent quite often. So I remember
That
that.
is a very common thing for us. Lady.
It ruins your day from when you think about that. So be calm.
If
If
you
you get
brood over it,
angry,
it is ruined.
like you said, Arey,
Let go, then it is okay.
then it is easy to handle. True.
You gave the solution. Neither fear nor fighting helps. You
Yes.
have to only know.
Yes. Try to understand the problem itself. Don't straight away jump into solutions. Yeah. Okay. So if there are no more questions, let us conclude.
Thank you, Viraj. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Viraj. It was a brilliant session.
Thank you, Hari.
Thank
you, Virajji.
Okay,
Nice,
let's
wonderful
just
session.
say the concluding prayers. Om Purnamada Purnamida Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hari Om.
Virajji.
Thank you.
Hariom,
Hari
and thank you, Virajji.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Good night to everybody.
Thank you, Virajji.
Bye.
Good night,
Bye.
yeah.
Hari.
Hari Om to all.